Sometimes, betrayal doesn't come like a storm. It comes like a whisper from the person you trust most. He made his pregnant wife apologize to his mistress. She filed for divorce and came out on top. They say marriage is built on trust, loyalty, and mutual respect. But what happens when those foundations crack under the pressure of secrets and betrayal? Meet Elena Matthews, a gentle spirit who believed she had found her forever in Adam Reynolds. Little did she know, her husband was living a double life with a woman who seemed to delight in breaking homes. Natalie Moore. In the ultimate act of betrayal, Adam demanded that his pregnant wife apologize to his mistress. The consequences were nothing short of explosive. This is the story of how Elena found the strength to fight back, and won more than anyone could have imagined. Elena Matthews was raised in the warm embrace of a close-knit family in the quiet town of Brookhill, population just under 9,000. Brookhill was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business. But despite the occasional nosy neighbor, Elena found comfort in the town's compassion. People showed up for one another in tough times, celebrated the good moments, and held strong beliefs in the sanctity of marriage. Raised by her parents, Richard and Helen Matthews, who ran a small but well-loved local hardware store, Elena grew up learning the importance of empathy, hard work, and loyalty. She was the eldest of three, with twin brothers, Ben and Brian, trailing closely behind her. While the boys spent their time on sports and pranks, Elena buried herself in books. She developed a deep appreciation for language and the intricate nature of human emotion. At 20, eager to explore life beyond Brookhill, she moved to the busy city of Riverside after earning a scholarship to a respected university where she majored in communications. Bright-eyed and determined, Elena balanced her studies with a part-time job at a cafe to support herself. Those years were liberating, difficult, and full of growth, but she never forgot where she came from. Nor did she lose her dream of one day creating a home filled with the kind of love and respect she saw between her parents. It was during this chapter of her life that she met Adam Reynolds. He was 3 years older, working as a junior executive at a commercial real estate firm. A mutual friend, Tanya Liu, who studied business with him, introduced them at a university charity gala. By all accounts, Adam seemed like a dream. He was polished, confident, and charming in a quiet, persuasive way that drew people in. His conversation with Elena that night flowed with ease, from art to travel to family to the future. In the months that followed, the two discovered they shared the same values. They both dreamed of having children someday. They valued strong family connections, and they craved a stable future free from the heartbreak they'd seen in others' relationships. Their love story unfolded slowly and sweetly. Thoughtful dates, weekend picnics at the city park, evening shows at the local theater, and home-cooked meals in Elena's tiny apartment off campus. After 2 years together, Adam proposed in a picture-perfect moment, on the same lakeside trail where they often walked. He presented her with a modest ring set with a diamond and small sapphire accents, Elena's birthstone. Her eyes welled with happy tears as she said yes. Yes, their wedding took place in her hometown of Brookhill. It was a modest but deeply heartfelt ceremony, surrounded by close friends and family. They exchanged vows that promised unwavering commitment. For the first 5 years, it truly was bliss. Adam's career took off. He moved up from junior roles to managerial positions, frequently traveling to meet clients for the firm he worked with, Lakeshore Realty Group. Elena, too, progressed in her own career. She started out with an internship at a local media outlet and gradually rose to become a content editor for a lifestyle publication. Financially, they were stable, thriving, even. They purchased a small yet comfortable condo near Adam's office building. Elena's aging parents visited on occasion, proud of everything their daughter had achieved. The couple had talked about starting a family, but decided to wait for the right moment, balancing their demanding careers and Adam's constant travel. What Elena didn't know was that cracks had already begun to appear beneath the smooth surface of their marriage. Adam remained charming and attentive, but he had a weakness for attention, admiration, and the rush of novelty. With success came temptation. There were industry parties, mingling with ambitious new professionals, late-night meetings, and the inviting lure of hotel lounges. His travel schedule gave him more than enough chances to stray. At first, the signs were subtle. Adam worked longer hours. When he came back from business trips, he seemed emotionally distant. He took his phone with him everywhere, even to the bathroom. The thoughtful midday texts and spontaneous "I love yous" that once defined their connection slowly vanished. Still, Elena clung to the man she believed in. She chalked it all up to work stress. She kept reassuring herself that once things calmed down, they'd return to the warmth and tenderness they used to share. Everything changed the day Elena, quietly suspecting she might be pregnant, took an at-home test and saw the result, positive. Overwhelmed with joy, she began planning the perfect way to tell Adam. He was due back from a weekend trip, and she envisioned everything. A candlelit dinner at home, soft music in the background, and a tiny onesie embroidered with the words, "Hello, Daddy," laid at the center of the table. She imagined his eyes filling with tears, the beginning of a beautiful new chapter that would draw them even closer. But life has a way of breaking even the most perfect illusions. And this couple, so seemingly whole, had no idea a storm was on its way. Adam's flight from Seattle landed late that Sunday evening. It was nearly 10 p.m. when Elena heard the jingling of keys at the condo door. She rushed to greet him, full of excitement. They'd exchanged a few texts earlier. Though he had seemed distracted, he blamed it on last-minute meetings and delayed flights. He brushed it off as last-minute meeting demands and flight delays. He stepped inside, looking tired but still undeniably handsome in his crisp navy suit. Elena noticed a faint scent of perfume clinging to him, one she didn't recognize. For a brief moment, her heart tightened with unease. She pushed it aside. After all, airports were crowded places. People bumped into each other. Maybe a flight attendant's fragrance had lingered. She assured herself there was a reasonable explanation. On the dining table, the candles flickered softly, casting a warm glow over a simple meal of homemade pasta and salad. She had spent hours preparing this. Not just the food, but the moment, the emotion. She'd replayed it in her head a dozen times, imagining his face lighting up, the joy they would share, the way he would take her in his arms and whisper how excited he was to become a father. Her heart swelled with anticipation, even as anxiety tugged at its edges. The tiny onesie sat inside a small gift box, neatly placed in front of Adam's plate. Even with a swirl of questions brewing inside her, Elena's excitement managed to overpower her doubts. "I have a surprise for you," she said, guiding him toward the table. Adam's face brightened slightly. "This is nice," he murmured, taking in the scene. But something in his energy was off. He seemed tense. He loosened his tie and forced a smile. When he opened the box, his gaze landed on the little garment. For a moment, he froze. Elena thought she saw a flicker of panic in his eyes before he softened into a grin. "You're pregnant?" he asked, disbelief coloring his voice. Elena nodded, tears glistening. "I found out yesterday. I wanted to tell you in a special way." He stepped forward, gave her a half-hearted hug and whispered, "That's wonderful news." But she heard it, the hesitation in his tone. Like part of him was somewhere else entirely. The chill that ran through her was immediate, like a crack splintering across a pane of glass. She stood motionless, his arms around her, but it felt empty, like hugging a ghost. She tried to hold on to the moment, but something had shifted. Her joy felt hijacked. Her dream moment, stolen. In the days that followed, Adam's behavior grew increasingly erratic. One minute, he was making her tea, or flipping through parenting books with apparent enthusiasm. The next, he was buried in his phone, texting at odd hours, stepping into other rooms for calls, always needing privacy. Elena started noticing little lies about where he'd eaten lunch, why he came home late, or who he'd met. She tried to brush the thoughts away. She was pregnant now. Stress wasn't good for the baby. But the unease kept growing, fed by every evasion and every carefully crafted excuse. To clear her head, Elena met up with her close friend and old college roommate, Tanya Liu, for coffee at a trendy cafe. As she sipped her drink, Elena poured her heart out, detailing Adam's mood swings and growing secrecy. Tanya listened intently, stirring her latte, her expression darkening with each word. "Sometimes he steps out onto the balcony to take calls," Elena said, her voice shaking. "And when I walk into the room, he hangs up or switches apps on his phone." She looked down, ashamed. "I don't want to be that wife who snoops." but I can't shake the feeling." Tanya leaned in, voice low. "Elena, you have to trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. That doesn't mean you go in guns blazing, but don't ignore it either. Pay attention." Elena thanked her friend for the advice, but she remained torn. A part of her needed solid proof before making any accusations. Another part clung to the belief that maybe Adam was just under pressure. After all, the real estate industry had been unpredictable lately, and preparing for a baby was no small adjustment. But the more she paid attention to his behavior, the harder it became to believe his innocence. One evening, she quietly approached their bedroom door while Adam was on a call. She overheard his hushed voice through the crack. "I told you I'd take care of it. She doesn't suspect anything. Yet. Just stay calm." The words sliced through her like ice. Who was he talking to in such a secretive tone? And what exactly was he taking care of? That night, sleep was out of reach. Elena lay in bed, mind racing through every possibility. Was it a risky business deal? Some hidden financial mess? Her heart pounded as a darker thought crept in. Was there another woman? She turned her face into the pillow, swallowing back the panic that was beginning to rise in her throat. The silence beside her in bed was louder than ever, filled with questions she wasn't ready to ask. For the first time, the warmth she once felt lying next to him felt cold, foreign. The signs started to pile up. A faint lipstick stain on the collar of his shirt, a hotel room key from a night he claimed he'd spent crashing at a coworker's apartment, and messages he swore were from his boss, but written in a tone that felt anything but professional. The pregnancy, which had once filled her with joy, now sat under the shadow of fear and betrayal. Before jumping to conclusions, Elena decided she needed undeniable proof. She borrowed an old phone from Tanya and with shaking hands installed a simple GPS tracking app on Adam's phone. It felt invasive, something she never thought she'd do. But for her own peace of mind, it felt necessary. She told herself that if nothing suspicious came up, she'd delete it and never speak of it again. The guilt gnawed at her as she stared at the app loading on the screen. She had always valued trust, believed in privacy, believed she wasn't someone who needed to check up on her partner. Now she felt like she was turning into someone she didn't recognize. But love wasn't supposed to hurt like this. But the very next night, her stomach dropped. At 9 p.m., the tracker showed Adam's location at a luxury downtown hotel. He had told her he was working late at the office. Her hands trembled too much to even hold the phone straight. Panic rising, she turned to social media. Anything that might offer more clarity. That's when a new account popped up as a suggested friend. Natalie Moore. The profile picture featured a striking woman with caramel brown hair and a piercing gaze. Her bio read, "Freelance real estate consultant." Curious and anxious, Elena tapped into the profile and was met with a cascade of photos. Luxurious dinners, swanky business trips, and one painfully familiar detail. Adam. He appeared in the background of more than one picture, never posed, but unmistakably present. The pieces started falling into place. The perfume, the late-night texts, the distance, the hotel. Natalie wasn't just some random contact. She was the other woman. Elena's breath caught in her throat. The reality struck with such force it stole the air from her lungs. This wasn't a hunch anymore. This wasn't paranoia. This was real. Tears slid silently down Elena's cheeks as she placed a trembling hand over her belly. The life growing inside her deserved better. She deserved better. 2 days after that gut-wrenching discovery, Elena gathered every ounce of courage she had. She planned a quiet dinner at home, hoping the privacy might give space for an honest conversation. But when Adam walked through the door that evening, he brought with him a whirlwind of excuses. He claimed there were urgent emails that needed immediate replies, locking himself away in the study. Elena gave him space, but her frustration bubbled just beneath the surface. She stared at the half-cooked dinner on the stove, her appetite long gone after waiting over an hour. Finally, she marched into the study. Adam was hunched over his laptop, his brow furrowed as if the fate of the world rested on that screen. He looked up, startled. "Elena, I'm really slammed. Can this wait?" Her voice came out calm, too calm. "No, it can't. We need to talk." Something in her tone must have caught his attention because Adam shut the laptop and set it aside. "Is everything okay?" Elena folded her arms. Does the name Natalie Moore mean anything to you? Adam blinked. For a brief second, his face was blank. Then a flicker of recognition crossed his eyes. She's a consultant. We've worked on a few deals together. Heart pounding, Elena held his gaze. I saw her social media. You're in more than a few of her photos, and you don't look like just business associates. His jaw tightened. You've been snooping? Yes, she answered, voice trembling. When my husband comes home smelling like someone else, disappears to hotels and lies about it, I think I'm allowed. I'm pregnant, Adam. I deserve the truth. Adam stood slowly, exhaling. Okay, I won't lie anymore. Natalie and I, we've been seeing each other. Hearing him say it out loud felt like a gut punch. Elena gripped the edge of the desk, tears welling. How could you? How long? He looked away, shame flickering across his face. It started about 6 months ago. We got close during a couple of out-of-town conferences. 6 months? He'd been cheating on her for half a year. Half a year of shared meals, baby name discussions, planning a future, while sneaking around behind her back. So she's the reason for all the lies? The distance? Adam nodded. Yes, but it's complicated. I love you, Elena. I really do. Fueled by betrayal, Elena grabbed the nearest object, a ceramic pen holder, and threw it across the room. It shattered against the wall. Don't you dare say you love me. Not after this. Her voice cracked with fury. I'm carrying your child, Adam. A baby you said you wanted as much as I did. His face twisted in pain. I never meant to hurt you, or the baby. It just happened, and then it spiraled. Elena wiped her tears away, her voice cold. Affairs don't just happen. You made a choice, over and over again. Every day. Do you have any idea what you've put me through? Elena's voice cracked as Adam took a step toward her. He reached out, but she recoiled. Don't. Stay away from me. I can't even look at you right now. He let out a deep, tired sigh. So, what now? Do you want a divorce? Elena's mind spiraled. Divorce? Separation? Therapy? She had always believed that marriage vows meant something, but she had never expected this kind of betrayal. I don't know, she whispered. I need time to think. The days that followed passed in a blur. Elena took time off work, citing pregnancy-related stress. It wasn't exactly a lie. She spent most of that week holed up at Tanya's apartment, breaking down between bouts of quiet reflection. Tanya listened, offering comfort when words failed. The silence was the worst. The echo of everything unsaid. The fragments of a future she thought she had, shattered like glass on a kitchen floor. She cried until there was nothing left, just the weight of exhaustion and the distant flutter of life inside her, reminding her she wasn't entirely alone. Yet even in Tanya's presence, Elena sometimes felt like a ghost in her own life, haunted by memories of laughter and shared dreams that now felt like fabrications. She questioned herself constantly. Was she too trusting? Too naive? Or was she somehow not enough to be chosen over the chaos Natalie brought? Meanwhile, Adam stayed alone in their condo, leaving voicemail after voicemail, sending texts filled with regret. He swore he would end things with Natalie. The pain wasn't just emotional, it took a toll physically. Elena lost her appetite and struggled to keep meals down. At a routine prenatal checkup, her doctor gently warned her that high levels of stress could negatively impact the baby. That was the wake-up call she needed. Determined to protect her child, Elena returned to the condo. She sat Adam down and told him plainly, if there was any chance of saving their marriage, he needed to cut Natalie out of his life completely. Adam agreed. He even handed her his phone, showing her that he had deleted Natalie's contact and blocked her across every platform. And for a while, Elena let herself believe it. This was still her husband, the father of her unborn child. Could they fix this? Maybe. He started going with her to doctor's appointments, talking about nursery color palettes, even flipping through parenting books before bed. Elena's heart softened. Maybe, just maybe, they could move forward. She wanted to believe in second chances, in redemption, in the man he once was, the man who made late-night grilled cheese sandwiches when she had morning sickness at midnight. But part of her remained braced, afraid to exhale. Because trust, once broken, doesn't heal cleanly. It scars. But Natalie Moore wasn't done. She came storming back into their lives like a storm that refused to pass. She texted Adam, emailed him constantly, demanding answers, demanding closure. Elena discovered it one morning over breakfast, an email that popped up on Adam's phone. The subject line stopped her cold. You owe me. Furious, she held the phone out. "What is this?" Adam rubbed his temples. "She won't let go. I'm not answering, I swear." The emails kept coming, angry, accusatory, threatening. Natalie hinted at ruining Adam's career, reaching out to his clients, even showing up at their building. She threatened to confront Elena face to face. Adam tried to de-escalate, but every response seemed to make her more volatile. What Elena didn't yet know was that Natalie wasn't just driven by heartbreak. She had her own twisted motivations. And those motives were about to explode in the form of a demand that made no sense. An apology. From Elena. It began with a single midnight text. "Your wife owes me an apology." The message lit up Adam's screen. He stared at it, stunned. Next to him, Elena stirred from sleep, squinting at the light. "What is it?" "Is it now?" Elena asked, groggy. Adam turned the phone toward her. "She's lost it," he muttered. "She says you owe her an apology." Elena sat up, outrage flashing across her face. "An apology? What on earth could I possibly owe her an apology for?" Over the next few days, Natalie's messages turned from unsettling to obsessive, flooding Adam's inbox with a volatile mix of threats and strange, pleading declarations. In her warped logic, she blamed Elena for standing in the way of her future with Adam. She argued that Elena refusing to divorce Adam was cruel, that Adam had never truly loved his wife, that she was the victim. It was delusional. She was the mistress, yet she spoke as though she had been wronged. One evening, Adam came home looking visibly shaken. He shut the door and glanced over his shoulder, like he expected someone to follow him inside. Elena stood at the kitchen counter, sipping her tea. "What happened?" she asked. "Natalie showed up at my office," he said, his voice unsteady. "She made a huge scene, screaming, accusing me of stringing her along. My boss overheard everything. It was humiliating." Elena's heart thudded, not with fear, but with rage. Rage at Natalie's audacity, and rage at the man across from her who had ever let this woman into their lives. It wasn't just about embarrassment anymore. It was about safety and respect. Elena set her teacup down with a sharp clink. "She's unhinged. We need to think about legal protection. A restraining order." Adam shook his head. "I don't want to escalate this. I just want her gone. I want her out of our lives." But the very next day, Natalie showed up at their condo. Despite the efforts of the building's security, she made it to their door. When Elena opened it, she found Natalie standing there, tense, determined, and furious. Her bright red dress clung to her frame, her eyes wild. "I need to talk to Adam," she snapped, trying to force her way past. Elena blocked the entrance. "He's not here, and even if he were, you're not welcome." Natalie's lips curled into a sneer as she looked Elena up and down. "So, this is the wife," she scoffed. "I thought you'd be prettier." Elena stiffened. The words sliced sharper than they should have. Not because they were true, but because they struck her in the most vulnerable moment of her life. She was carrying a child, holding her body together with trembling resolve, and now she stood face to face with the very woman who had tried to destroy her world. Normally that kind of petty jab wouldn't have fazed Elena. But now, pregnant and raw, it landed like a punch. "You need to leave," she said again, her voice steel. Natalie's gaze dropped to Elena's belly, and her expression twisted. Something dark flickered in her eyes, something primal. "Carrying his baby doesn't make you special," she hissed. "I could have given him children, better ones than you ever could." Elena's breath caught. Her fingers curled into fists at her sides. Her instincts screamed to push back, to defend her worth, but she held steady, not for Natalie's sake, but for her own. Before Elena could respond, Tanya suddenly appeared behind her. "Leave, or I'm calling the police," Tanya snapped. Natalie's stare lingered for a heartbeat longer, then she turned and stormed away. Elena's hands trembled as she locked the door behind her. She was shaken, both relieved and rattled. One thing was painfully clear. Natalie Moore was dangerously obsessed, and she wasn't done. There was no telling what she might do next. But the darkest twist had yet to unfold. That evening, Adam paced the living room, pale and agitated, phone clutched in his hand. Elena, drained from the day, was about to head to bed when Adam stepped in front of her. "She's threatening to accuse me of harassment," he said, his voice low. "If I don't give in to her demand." Elena froze. "What demand?" She wants you to apologize to her, publicly." Elena's breath hitched. "She wants me, the pregnant wife, to apologize to her, the mistress?" Adam nodded. panic clouding his expression. She says she'll go to the media, accuse me of manipulation, or worse, she could cost me my job, Elena. I could lose everything. A flash of fury burned through Elena's face. And what about what I lose? My dignity? My self-respect? Her voice trembled, not from fear, but from a surge of white-hot indignation. Every humiliation she'd swallowed, every cruel message, every glance in the mirror wondering if she was enough. It all surged to the surface. And now, he wanted her to bow down to the woman who had tried to dismantle her life? Adam reached for her shoulders. I'm not saying we should do it. I'm telling you what she said. She's threatening lawsuits. She even said you slandered her, called her unstable. Elena trembled from head to toe. So let me get this straight. You're actually considering making your pregnant wife apologize to your mistress? Just to save your reputation? Adam dropped his gaze. I don't know what to do. My boss is already livid over the scene she caused at the office. If she pulls another stunt. Silence wrapped around them like a vice. Elena stared at him, feeling her heart fracture all over again. She saw it clearly now. Adam's fear of losing his image, his job, his status, it outweighed any real love he claimed to have for her. And with that clarity came a cold finality. Something inside her, the part that had held out hope, that had wanted to believe he was still her partner, snapped. Through clenched teeth, she said, "You've dragged me through hell, Adam, and now you have the audacity to ask me to humiliate myself to protect you from the fallout of your own decisions?" He looked torn. If we don't do something, she'll ruin us both. Maybe we could fake it, just a short note, a statement, something to appease her. Elena locked her jaw. Absolutely not. But the threats didn't stop. They escalated. Natalie began emailing not just Adam but also Elena's workplace, accusing her of defamation. She posted cryptic messages online, teasing that a major real estate scandal was about to break. Adam's boss summoned him into a tense meeting, warning him to clean up his personal mess or be fired. Cornered, afraid, and crumbling under pressure, Adam made a decision that shattered what was left of Elena's trust. One night, he came into their bedroom, desperation bleeding into his voice. "You need to apologize to her," he said. "Just a short statement, online or in person. We'll record it and send it to her. That's all she wants." Elena stared at him like she was seeing a stranger. "You can't be serious. How dare you even suggest that?" "I know it sounds crazy," Adam pleaded, "but I can't lose my job. We have a baby on the way. Think about our future." "Our future?" she repeated, her voice hollow. "There is no future if you force me into this." Her words landed like stone, but he didn't seem to hear them at all. Adam gripped her hands. "Please, just do it. For me. For us." Against every instinct in her body, Elena agreed to a single meeting with Natalie, clinging to a faint hope that maybe, just maybe, reason could prevail. But reason had no place in the mind of a woman who saw the world through a lens of entitlement. And so, the stage was set for what would become the most humiliating moment of Elena's life. The meeting was held at a quiet, upscale cafe on the edge of town. Natalie's choice. She demanded discretion, somewhere private, away from the city center. Every step toward the front door felt like a march to her own degradation. Elena arrived with Adam, her posture rigid, her resentment barely contained. Inside, Natalie was already seated at a corner table, looking infuriatingly composed. She wore a sleek black dress, her hair perfectly styled, as if she were prepping for a magazine shoot. The sight of her made Elena's stomach twist. Adam moved to pull out a chair for her, but Elena brushed past him and sat down stiffly. "Let's get this over with," she said, folding her arms protectively over her growing belly. Natalie smiled, though her eyes were sharp. "How sweet of you to join me, Elena," she drawled. "I've been looking forward to our little heart-to-heart." Elena swallowed back a retort. She could feel Adam tense beside her. Her own heart hammered in her chest. She remembered her doctor's warning about stress, but there was no backing out now. "So," Elena began, her voice brittle, "you want an apology, for what exactly?" Natalie leaned in, twirling her straw slowly through a half-melted iced latte. "Where do I even start?" she said. "For starters, your husband's lies. For blaming me when he's the one who kept secrets, and for making me look like some obsessive lunatic." Adam tried to speak. "Natalie, you know," she waved him off with a polished flick of her hand. "I'm talking to Elena." Rage rose in Elena's chest. "You chased a married man," she snapped. You threatened me, you insulted me, and now you want me to apologize for ruining your fantasy? Natalie shrugged. Adam and I had something real. You, on the other hand, are just clinging to a marriage that was broken from the start. If you just step aside, gracefully, none of this would be necessary. Elena trembled, but her voice was steady. You're delusional. Adam is my husband, and I'm pregnant with his child. Natalie's lips curled into a cruel smile. A child, she repeated. One he never told me about. He lied to me too, and that's your fault. You caged him. Elena felt like she was arguing with a wall. I'm done, she muttered. This is insane. She started to rise, but Adam reached out, gripping her arm. Elena, please, he whispered, eyes pleading. She froze, breath caught in her throat. Tears stung her eyes as the realization sank in. Adam wasn't stopping this. He wasn't standing up for her. He was choosing damage control over her dignity. In a moment of soul-crushing humiliation, Elena sank back into the chair. Fine. If this is what you need to move on, Elena said, her voice trembling with suppressed fury, then fine. I'll say I'm sorry, for whatever it is you think I've done to you. Natalie's eyebrows arched. She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. I want it recorded. Adam swallowed hard and shot Elena a desperate look. She closed her eyes, trying to steady her breath. Then, with Natalie's phone pointed at her like a weapon, she spoke words that tasted like ash. Natalie, I apologize for any part I may have played in making you feel unappreciated or wronged. I'm sorry if I ever judged you unfairly. The statement rang hollow, but Natalie's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. She ended the recording and slipped her phone back into her purse. Now, was that so hard? Elena stood up abruptly, tears streaking down her face. I hope you're satisfied. Natalie gave a casual shrug. We'll see. If I decide that's enough, maybe I won't escalate things. Adam turned to her, voice strained. Please, you have your apology. Don't make this worse than it already is. Natalie smirked. I'll consider it. As Elena stormed out, the world outside felt unreal. Like a bad dream she couldn't wake from. Anger and humiliation pulsed in her veins. How had she ended up here? Once a joyful wife, excited for the future, now reduced to apologizing to the woman who tried to destroy her life. Reaching the sidewalk, she leaned against a lamppost, vision blurred by tears. Tanya, who had been waiting nearby in the car for emotional support, rushed over. Oh my God, Elena, are you okay? Elena shook her head, choking on sobs. I did it, Tanya. I actually apologized to her. Tanya wrapped her arms around her. You did what you had to do. Adam caught up moments later, his face drawn with guilt. Elena, wait. She spun to face him, grief turning to fury. Don't you dare speak to me right now. I hope you realize what you've just done. With that, she climbed into Tanya's car, and they drove off, leaving Adam standing alone on the sidewalk. That night, Elena barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, the memory of Natalie's smug smile and Adam's shame-filled silence flooded back. By morning, she felt hollow, drained. The only thing anchoring her was the baby growing inside her. That same day, she made a decision she never thought she'd make. She reached out to a divorce attorney. Her name was Genevieve Morris, a longtime friend of Elena's late father. Genevieve had a reputation, fearless, thorough, and fiercely protective of her clients. Exactly the kind of ally Elena needed. Genevieve agreed to meet at her downtown office. Elena sat in the minimalist waiting room, fingers clutching a folder filled with damning evidence. Screenshots of Natalie's threats, emails sent to her job, and GPS logs of Adam's late-night hotel visits. When Genevieve walked in, she exuded calm control. Dressed in a tailored navy suit, silver hair pinned into a neat chignon, she extended her hand. They settled into Genevieve's office, and Elena exhaled shakily. I never thought I'd end up here, but I can't live like this anymore. Genevieve folded her hands on the desk. I understand. Why don't you start from the beginning? Tell me everything. Elena opened up. She told her how she met Adam, how the affair with Natalie began, the pregnancy, the manipulation, the threats, and ultimately the humiliation of being coerced into an apology. Genevieve listened closely, occasionally jotting down notes. I won't sugarcoat it, she said after Elena had finished. Divorce can get messy, especially when money, reputation, and a child are all on the table. But based on what you've shared, you have a strong case. Emotional distress, defamation threats from the mistress, coercion, and betrayal. All of that paints a clear picture of a toxic and unstable environment. Elena felt a flicker of hope. I just want to protect my baby and get out of this nightmare. Her voice trembled with a quiet strength. It wasn't just fear anymore, it was resolve. A fire that had been building inside her, fueled by every sleepless night, every silent tear, every moment she'd questioned her worth. For the first time in weeks, she felt a sense of direction. She was choosing herself and her child. Still, beneath the surge of newfound determination, doubt lingered like a shadow. Part of her still wrestled with guilt for giving up on something she once vowed would last forever. What if she was making a mistake? What if walking away wasn't strength but failure in disguise? Genevieve nodded. Once the baby is born, we can file for full custody, or at least primary custody with appropriate support. But we'll need to gather documentation, financial records, income statements, proof of misconduct, everything that can help clarify what you're entitled to. The next hurdle was telling Adam. That evening, Elena returned to the condo with her mind made up. She found Adam sitting on the couch, fiddling nervously with his phone. The moment he saw her, his expression shifted, relief spreading across his face. "Where were you? I've been worried." She set her bag down calmly. "I went to see a lawyer." His eyes widened. "A lawyer?" "Yes," she said evenly. "I'm filing for divorce." The words struck like a clap of thunder. Adam paled. "Elena, wait, please. It doesn't have to come to that." She raised her hand. "It does have to come to that. You made me apologize to your mistress, Adam. That wasn't just betrayal, it was cruelty." He stepped forward, desperation pouring off him. "I told you. I was scared. I was going to lose everything. My job, my reputation. I never meant." Her voice cracked. "You never meant? You cheated on me while I was pregnant. Lied to me for months, then you stood by and let me degrade myself in front of the woman who tried to destroy our lives. You call that love?" Adam collapsed onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. "I don't know what to say. I messed up. I know I did. I'll do anything to fix it." Elena's jaw clenched. "It's too late. I need to put myself and this baby first." Elena turned toward the door. Adam scrambled up behind her, following her into the bedroom. "Elena, please. We can go to counseling. I'll quit my job if that's what it takes." Her throat tightened. For one brief, aching second, she remembered the good times, the laughter, the plans, the quiet evenings wrapped in each other's arms. But that memory was quickly drowned by the image of Natalie's smug smile, and Adam standing silently as she was humiliated. That moment had carved a scar so deep it was still raw. The silence from him that day had screamed louder than any betrayal. He hadn't just let her fall, he'd handed her over to the fire. "There's no going back from this," Elena murmured, grabbing a small suitcase and packing only the essentials. "I'm staying at Tanya's until the divorce is finalized. If you have any respect left for me, don't fight this." Adam looked like he'd been gutted. Tears welled in his eyes. But Elena hardened herself. She couldn't afford to let emotions sway her. Her hands shook as she folded the last sweater into the bag, but her spine stayed straight. She wasn't leaving out of weakness. She was leaving because she finally recognized her worth. With one final glance at the home that once symbolized everything they built, she walked out the door, leaving Adam behind. A new chapter had begun, one lined with pain and uncertainty, but also with something else, resolve. As her heart ached, a strange glimmer of freedom surged through her. By choosing herself, choosing her child, Elena was taking back her power. And fate, as it turned out, was just getting started. In the weeks that followed, Elena threw herself into her case under Genevieve Morris's guidance. She documented everything: the forced apology, Natalie's threats, evidence of Adam's infidelity, and financial records showing his ability to pay support. At the same time, Genevieve filed for preliminary terms of full custody, even though the baby hadn't been born yet. It was rare, but necessary. Given the toxicity of Adam's behavior and the danger Natalie posed, it needed to be on record that Elena intended to protect her child at all costs. When Adam was served divorce papers, his reaction was swift, a volatile blend of panic and regret. His lawyer reached out, suggesting a quiet settlement. But Elena, fueled by heartbreak and righteous fury, refused to compromise. There was no space left for half measures, no tolerance for negotiation built on guilt. Not after everything she'd endured. Then, one afternoon, Adam called her. His voice trembled. "I'll agree to almost anything," he said. "But please, don't drag my name through the mud. Midtown Realty's already on the verge of letting me go." Elena clutched the phone, her hand resting on her now round belly. "You should have thought about that before you made me apologize to your mistress," she replied coldly. "I'm done protecting your reputation." A sliver of guilt tried to rise within her. After all, she had once loved him deeply. But then she remembered all the nights she'd cried alone, the fear, the shame, the humiliation, and she knew she was doing the right thing. She steeled her resolve. The first hearing was held in a modest family courthouse in downtown Riverside. Elena, dressed in a simple black maternity dress, clutched a folder filled with documentation. Genevieve stood beside her, radiating calm confidence. Adam arrived moments later in a tailored suit, looking at least 10 years older than he had just a few weeks prior. His eyes were shadowed with fatigue, and he scanned the hallway with nervous, darting glances. To Elena's surprise, Natalie was there too. Though she had no legal standing in the proceedings, she lingered near Adam, occasionally leaning in to whisper something in his ear. Elena caught bits and pieces of her smug commentary, remarks about Elena's pregnancy, about how cruel she was being to Adam. Each word, each glance from Natalie felt like a tiny blade nicking at her composure. Elena's knuckles whitened around the folder in her hands. Part of her wanted to scream, to demand how this woman could still show her face here, as if she were the victim. But instead, she stood still, pressing her back into the courtroom wall, willing herself not to shake. When the judge finally entered, everyone filed into the compact courtroom. Elena's heart pounded against her chest. Though no official custody orders would be issued until after the baby was born, the judge could lay the groundwork, clarifying spousal support expectations and shaping early impressions of the case. Genevieve presented Elena's case methodically. She detailed the breakdown of the marriage, Adam's affair, the emotional distress caused by his betrayal, and the harassment Elena endured from Natalie. She emphasized the significance of Elena's pregnancy, her need for both financial security and emotional stability, and the traumatic toll of being coerced into a public apology to her husband's mistress. Adam's attorney tried to counter the damage. He argued that, while the affair was regrettable, it didn't disqualify Adam from his rights as a co-parent. He insisted Adam had both the financial resources and personal commitment to be involved in the child's life, should Elena agree to shared custody. The judge, an older man with wire-rimmed glasses, listened with a neutral expression. But when Genevieve presented the screenshots of Natalie's threatening messages, including her demand for an apology and subtle blackmail, the judge's demeanor changed. "I'll need time to review this material carefully," he said, turning to Adam. "But I take these allegations of coercion and harassment very seriously, especially given the emotional pressure Miss Matthews experienced during pregnancy. This will factor heavily into any decisions I make regarding spousal support and custody." Elena held her breath. Even as the judge spoke firmly in her favor, part of her couldn't shake the anxiety clinging to her ribs. Would it really be enough? Would the system see her as a mother fighting for her child, or just another woman tangled in a bitter breakup? Outside the courtroom, the air was heavy with tension. Natalie glared at Elena with open contempt, while Adam hovered nearby, looking lost, torn between the woman who had helped destroy his marriage and the wife he had already lost. Elena just wanted to get away from it all. In the weeks that followed, negotiations continued. Adam's attorney presented multiple settlement offers, ranging from generous monthly support to partial property buyouts. It was clear Adam was desperate to keep the case from dragging into a public scandal. His standing at Lakeshore Realty was already shaky. A courtroom drama would likely be the final blow. Meanwhile, Elena focused on her pregnancy. She leaned heavily on Tanya and her family for support. Her parents, Richard and Helen Matthews, traveled from Brook Hill to be with her, offering comfort, stability, and help as she prepared a nursery wherever she would eventually land. Her due date was fast approaching. As her due date crept closer, Elena sensed Adam's anxiety mounting. One evening, he called again, his voice thick with desperation. "Elena, please, can we meet? Just the two of us. No lawyers, I just want to talk." After discussing it with Genevieve, Elena agreed to a carefully arranged meeting at a neutral location. a private conference room inside Genevieve's law firm. Their lawyers would be close by, but she and Adam would be allowed to speak alone if they chose. When Elena arrived, Adam was already there, pacing restlessly. Natalie was, thankfully, nowhere in sight. The moment Elena stepped into the room, Adam rushed forward, pulling out a chair for her. She gave him a guarded look before sitting down. "What is it?" He exhaled deeply, rubbing a hand through his unkempt hair. "I want to settle this. I'll give you whatever you ask for. The condo, spousal support, child support, anything. Just don't take my child away from me." Emotion twisted in Elena's chest. She remembered him once sitting on the couch, reading baby name books. His eyes lit up with excitement. And though he had betrayed her in unimaginable ways, a part of her knew, deep down, he might still love this child. "I won't deny you visitation rights," she said softly. "Unless the court decides it's unsafe. But don't expect me to trust you again overnight. This isn't about you or me anymore. It's about the baby." Adam nodded, his voice nearly a whisper. "I'll do whatever it takes." Elena watched him carefully. For once, his voice didn't carry the same arrogance or desperation to fix things on his terms. There was something quieter, maybe even broken, in his tone. But broken didn't erase the past. It didn't erase what she had endured. Still, she could feel the tug of humanity, of wanting to believe that even those who fail us can change, if not for us, then for the ones we bring into the world. A few days later, the lawyers finalized a proposed settlement. Elena would retain primary physical custody once the baby was born. Adam would be granted supervised visitation in the beginning due to concerns about Natalie's involvement. He'd pay significant spousal support for a limited time, along with standard child support. The condo would be sold and the proceeds divided, though Elena had the option to request a larger portion, considering her situation. Genevieve, while skeptical of Adam's sudden sincerity, admitted it was a strong offer. They could push for more in court, but it would mean months of drawn-out litigation. In the end, Elena chose stability over revenge. She signed. The pen felt heavy in her hand. Not because she was unsure, but because she knew this signature marked more than a legal end. It was the closing chapter of a life she had once imagined would last forever. But what came next? That was fate's doing. A wave of karmic justice was about to crash, loud and public. Just days after the agreement was finalized, Elena's phone rang. It was Tanya, her voice trembling with barely contained shock and excitement. "Elena, have you seen the news?" Elena, sitting outside her doctor's office after a routine prenatal appointment, blinked. "What news?" "It's Natalie. She's in huge trouble. Check the local business headlines." Elena pulled out her phone, heart pounding as she tapped into the news app. And there it was. Real estate consultant Natalie Moore arrested for fraud. She stared at the headline, her breath caught. Then she began to read, eyes widening with every word. Natalie had been forging client signatures and siphoning money through fraudulent real estate deals for months. A sting operation had finally brought her down. As Elena read the article, a rush of emotions surged through her. Relief, disbelief, and a strange sense of vindication. She remembered every threat Natalie had ever hurled at her. The smug arrogance when she demanded an apology. And now? Now, Natalie's own actions had caught up with her. That evening, Adam called, his voice shaky, panicked. "Elena, Natalie's been arrested. The company's launching an internal investigation. They're calling me in for questioning. About her, about our relationship. They think I might be involved." Elena held the phone tighter. "Are you?" she asked softly, part of her afraid to hear the answer. "No," he said quickly, "but they found emails. She mentioned deals we discussed. I don't know how they'll interpret them. This could ruin everything." Elena closed her eyes. "I'm sorry, Adam, but this isn't my battle anymore." Her voice was calm, but inside she felt a tremor of long-buried pain. She remembered every time he had turned his back on her discomfort. Every moment he had made her feel irrational, overreactive, when all along her instincts had been spot on. Her mind flashed to all the times he'd dismissed her fears, minimized her pain, or humiliated her for the sake of Natalie. Now, he was facing the consequences of aligning himself with someone so completely untrustworthy. In the following days, Adam was placed on temporary leave from Lakeshore Realty while the investigation unfolded. Natalie, on the other hand, was hit with serious criminal charges. Local media ran story after story. captivated by the scandal that shook the real estate community. As for Elena, she focused on her health and the final weeks of pregnancy. Genevieve handled the last of the paperwork. Elena leaned on Tanya and her family, while her parents stayed close, helping her prepare for the baby's arrival. For the first time in months, her thoughts began to settle. She no longer woke in the middle of the night, gripped by anxiety. Her energy, her breath, her purpose, now fully belonged to herself and the child she was about to meet. Then, nearly 3 weeks early, Elena went into labor. She was rushed to Riverside General, her parents and Tanya flanking her side. Amid the blur of contractions, hospital gowns, and monitors, a quiet question lingered in her mind. Would Adam show up? He did. Disheveled, pale, and clearly shaken, he appeared in the waiting room, only to be met by Tanya's unwavering glare. "Don't you dare stress her out right now," she warned. Adam nodded, eyes red with emotion. "I just want to see my child." After 15 grueling hours of labor, Elena gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Tears replaced months of sorrow as she held the infant against her chest, skin to skin, warmth to warmth. In that moment, everything else fell away. There was only the rhythm of the baby's breath against hers, the softness of new life, and a love so immediate it stole her breath. This was the reason she had endured. She named her Sophia Grace Matthews, giving her daughter Elena's maiden name, for now. It was a symbol of independence, of reclaiming her strength. Adam was allowed in for a few minutes, just long enough to hold his daughter. Swaddled in soft blankets, Sophia looked impossibly small in his arms. Elena watched from the bed, emotions swirling inside her. She saw the love in Adam's eyes. That part was real, but so was the damage. Adam pulled up a chair cautiously. "She's beautiful," he whispered, voice heavy with emotion. "You did amazing, Elena." She gave a slight nod, the exhaustion on her face unmistakable. "She is beautiful," Elena replied. "She's the one good thing to come out of all this." Adam looked down at the floor. I just want you to know, I'm sorry, so sorry, for everything." She didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. She couldn't undo the past. She couldn't erase the pain or absolve him of the choices that had brought them here. But for Sophia's sake, she hoped, maybe someday, they could coexist peacefully. Not long after, Adam faced the final consequences of his past. Though the internal investigation cleared him of any direct role in Natalie's fraud, his relationship with her was deemed a serious liability. Lakeshore Realty offered him a quiet severance and encouraged him to resign. His career, once thriving, was in tatters. Finding another executive-level position proved nearly impossible. Elena, by contrast, found her stride again. As word of her story quietly circulated through professional circles, she was approached by a respected digital publication seeking an experienced content editor. Her personal journey had given her voice depth, compassion, and credibility. It showed in her writing. A few months later, at the final divorce hearing, the judge reviewed the updated circumstances. Adam had lost his high-income role, but the court upheld the original agreement: spousal support, child support, and Elena's full custody of Sophia. The public exposure of Natalie's crimes and the coercion Elena endured left the judge unsympathetic to Adam's pleas. When the gavel fell, Elena walked out of that courtroom with legal clarity, financial stability, and, most importantly, her daughter's safety. Adam was left to sift through the wreckage of his choices. The unshakable career? Gone. The illusion of a picture-perfect marriage? Gone. What remained were consequences. And regret. As Elena stepped out into the bright afternoon light, Genevieve by her side, Sophia safe with her grandparents, a deep sense of peace filled her lungs. There were still wounds, still moments of grief and memory, but she was free. Free from the lies, the manipulation, the toxic pull of a woman who had nearly dismantled her world. Elena had walked through fire and emerged whole. Dear friend, there's a truth the Stoics knew well. We don't control what happens to us, we only control how we respond. Elena's story is a living example of that truth. She was handed betrayal, humiliation, and heartbreak, but she chose dignity, clarity, and courage. In a world that often urges us to forgive at the cost of our own healing, she stood tall and said, "Not this time." She protected her child, reclaimed her voice, and rose, not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. Sometimes, the fiercest kind of strength is the quiet kind. The kind that walks away without looking back. So if you're in the middle of your own storm, remember this. You are allowed to break, but you are never required to stay broken. If Elena's story touched your heart, helped you feel seen, or reminded you of your own strength, please consider liking this video, sharing it with someone who needs it, and subscribing for more real stories that speak to the soul.